Hello everyone, welcome you all of our today's session, GATE coaching class on section 6 transportation engineering. I am Shivkumar MJ, faculty in the Department of Civil Engineering, CMRIT, Bengaluru. So today we discuss about transportation engineering. Let us have a look on GATE 2021 syllabus. So under section 6, first one it is the transportation infrastructure. So under transportation infrastructure, it covers geometric design of highways. So that will contains the cross-sectional elements, site distances, horizontal and vertical alignments. And then a geometric design of a railway track also it covers. So under that speed and current we study. Concept of airport runway length, calculations and corrections, taxiway and exit taxiway design it covers. So that's all about transportation infrastructure. And then another topic under section 6, it is highway pavements. So it consists of highway materials, so desirable properties and tests of highway materials and desirable properties of bituminous paving mixes also we study. Design factors for flexible and rigid pavement it covers. Design of flexible and rigid pavements using IRC code we study. Next subject is traffic engineering. Traffic studies on flow and speed, peak hour factor, accident study, statistical analysis of traffic data, microscopic and macroscopic parameters of traffic flow, fundamental relationships, traffic science, signal design by Webster's method, types of intersections, and highway capacity we are going to study under traffic engineering. So totally these three subjects comes under section 6 transportation engineering. So first it comes to highway geometric design of a geometric design of a highway, it deals with the dimensions and layout of visible features of highway such as alignment, site distances and intersections. So this deals with alignment, site distances, and intersections. So elements of highway geometric designs consists of cross-sectional elements. So under the cross-sectional elements, width of pavement, formation of land, surface characteristics, and cross slope of pavement we will study. And then the site distance considerations. So under this, different site distances like stopping site distance, overtaking site distance, intermediate site distance, headlight site distance, these things are covered. And then horizontal alignment details like horizontal curves, super elevation, extra widening, and transition curves, these things we'll study. Vertical alignment details, and then intersection elements. These things are covered under elements of highway geometric design. Some of the factors which affect the highway geometric designs are like this: topography of the land, locality and traffic characteristics, requirement of design speed. So some of the factors which will affect the highway geometric design, and some factors which controls the highway geometric design are speed of the vehicle, road users and vehicle characteristics, and then how much traffic volume, that is design traffic, traffic capacity, and then cost benefit considerations. Okay, these are all the some factors which will control the highway geometric design. So first thing on cross sectional element you come for, that is pavement surface characteristics. So in pavement surface characteristics, it is important to study about the friction. So this friction lies between the vehicle tires and pavement surface. So that occurs in longitudinal direction as well as even in lateral direction also. So under this skid and slip you need to understand. So when skid occurs is when wheel slides without revolving. So under this case, the distance traveled by the vehicle will be greater than the circumferential movement of the wheels. So that is when skid occurs, and then slip occurs when wheel revolves more than the corresponding longitudinal moment along the roads. So when it comes to skid, longitudinal and lateral skid, I spoke about. When the path traveled along the road surface is greater than the circumferential moment of the wheels due to rotation, so that is where longitudinal skid comes into picture. And lateral skid when the centrifugal force is greater than the counteracting force. So under such cases, lateral skid the vehicle may experience. Factors affecting skid resistance, which is nothing but friction here. So type of the pavement surface, whether it is waterborne macadam or earthen or bituminous or concrete roads, it depends on that. And then condition of the pavement also, it depends on whether a pavement surface is dry or wet, or whether pavement surface is smooth or rough. It depends on type and condition of the tire also, whether the tire is old tire or new tire. So when it comes to like old tire, if the road surface is dry, there will be proper contact between the tire surface and the road. And also due to wearing of tire surfaces, there will be more area of contact between the old tires and roads, so that skid resistance will be greater. But the same old tires, if the road surface is wet, so in such cases, the wheels will slip due to less skid resistance. When it comes to new tires, so new tires, when vehicle is traveling on moving on a dry surface, then the area of contact is less when you compare to old tires. So in such case, skid resistance will be lesser. But if the road surface is wet in nature, if the wheel is tire is new one, then if brake is applied, the water on the road surface will go in between the slots or grooves made in the tires, so that higher skid resistance we may expect from new tires when we compare to old tires. And speed of the vehicle also will affect on friction, extent of brake application, load and tire pressure, temperature of tire and pavement, type of skate, whether it is longitudinal or lateral. So that also matters. These are all some factors which affect the friction or skid resistance. According to IRC, the coefficient of longitudinal friction is set to 0.35 to 4.0, 0.4, 4.0, and then coefficient of lateral friction, it is set to 0.15. Okay, while designing these values, that is 0.15 and 0.35 to 4, we are going to consider and we will use. And the pavement surface condition you come for. So whether the pavement surface is smooth or so many undulations are there, that matters, the design speed and also the friction. So Bump integrator we can use for measuring the unevenness. So per kilometer, how much is the undulation is normally expressed for uh, checking the unevenness index. So unevenness indicator measured by bump integrator values are 150 centimeter per kilometer if the unevenness index is there means. So that pavement surface is good in high speeds. If it is up to 250, greater than 150 and up to 250, it is satisfactory up to 100 kilometer per hour speed. And if it is greater than 350 kilometer centimeter per kilometer, it is uncomfortable, even though the speed is 50 kilometer per hour. So it is important to have a smooth and flat surface for maintaining the design speed. So undulations are not acceptable. And then next characteristics, it is light reflecting characteristics. So glare caused by the reflection of headlights is considerably high on wet pavement surfaces, especially at night times. If the road surface color it is black means visibility is very poor, and vehicles coming in opposite direction which causes the light glare may lead to accident at night time. So it may be advisable for a bright white color pavement at night time, but when it comes to daytime, due to white colored pavement surfaces, so too much of light glare due to sunlight, which cause eye strain, which is not acceptable again. So it is important to have road dividers, and there is like it is good to avoid such light glare by growing some plants in between the lanes of road so that light glare can be avoided. And then drainage of surface water. So it is important as soon as it rains, the water drain off on the pavement surface so that even durability and stability of road increases. So it is desirable to keep the unevenness index as much as low, and also like longitudinal gradient. If it is less than 150 centimeter per kilometer, it is good surface. Up to 250 centimeter per kilometer is maintained up to speed of 100 kilometer. More than 320 centimeter per kilometer, very uncomfortable. Next, a cross-sectional element you come for, it is camber or cross slope. So for better draining out the water, it is important to have a camber for roads. There are different shapes are available: parabolic, straight line, and then combined. Both straight line as well as parabolic, that shape can be maintained. So this camber help us to drain out the water as soon as it rains, and also it helps to avoid the percolation of water into the road cross section, so that which maintains a better stability for roads. Otherwise, if proper camber is not maintained, water can percolate inside the road surface, which will reduce the stability of different sections of the road. So it is expressed as x percentage variable. You can take anything in place of x or x in 100. So recommended values of camber according to IRC, depending upon different type of road surfaces. So if it is a heavy rainy area means, if you are recommending cement concrete and high type of bitumen surface means, you can go for 1 in 50, that is 2%. If it is light, the range of camber in areas of rainfall. So rainfall is quite less means you can go for 1.7%. If it is the area where heavy rainfall is happening, 2% you can maintain. If the type of road surface is a thin bituminous surface, so it is a 2% in areas where light rainfall is happening, and then it is a 2.5 percentage in heavy rainfall areas. If you are going for choosing waterborne macadam roads and then gravel pavement, it is 2.5% to 3%. In that range, you can provide based on intensity of rainfall. And then earthen roads, if you have chosen, 3% to 4% can be maintained. So you can remember these values because as it is specified by IRC, so it can be asked like for thin bituminous surface, if the area, what should be the chamber should be provided in areas where heavy rainfall is happening. Okay, it is good to remember it is 2.5% or 1 in 40. So different geometries, parabolic, straight, and then combined. Straight as well as parabolic can be maintained. Camber depends on the different types of road surfaces, but generally camber is half of the longitudinal gradient of the road. It depends on that also, how much longitudinal gradient is given for roads. So half of that can be selected. Next, it is a width of a pavement or carriageway and the cross-sectional elements. So width of pavement, it depends on width of a traffic lane and also number of lanes, whether it is a single lane road, two lane road, and under that again curbs are provided or curbs are not provided, and then multi-lane pavement. It depends on that. For pavements having a single lane road, width of 3.75 meters is considered as desirable. So single lane road it is 3.75 meters. For pavement having two or more lanes, width of 3.5 meter per lane is considered sufficient. So two lane road means 2 times of 3.5, that is 7 meters is considered as sufficient. Maximum width of the vehicles fixed by as per IRC specifications, it is 2.44 meters. So you need to remember these values. 2.44 meters, that is maximum width of vehicle as per IRC specifications, and 3.75 meters per lane, and then 3.5 meters if there exists two or more lanes. So you can see the recommended width of carriageway by IRC, single lane 3.75, two lane without raised curves it is 7 meters, with raised curve it is 7.5 meters. Both side 0.25 meters, 0.25 meters for the curves can be allowed, so that it is 7.5 meters. And then intermediate carriageway it is 5.5 meters, and then multi-lane pavement it is 3.5 meter per lane. If there exist 6 lanes, you multiply 6 with 3.5, so that is the width of carriageway. Width of a single lane or village roads may be decreased to 3 meters. So if you are providing roads in villages, on urban roads without curves, single lane width may be decreased to 3.5 meter, and in access road to the residential areas it can be decreased to 3 meters also. Minimum width recommended for curved urban road is 5.5 meter to make allowance for the stalled vehicles. So this is important. Stalled vehicles, if that allowance is made, it should be 5.5 meter. So you can see around the 3.75 to 3.8 meter width of carriageway is provided, means maximum width of the vehicle is 2.44 meters, and it is available a clearance of 0.68 and 0.68 both the sides. When it comes to two lane roads, so two vehicles, 2.44, 2.44, and then its clearance it is 0.53, 0.53. in between 2 times of 0.53, that is 1.06 can be allowed. So that's all about carriageway, width of carriageway. Next, it is a type of curves. You know where exactly curves are provided. Curves are provided in between the pavement surface and the shoulders. So these curves will improve the stability of roads. It will not allow the different courses of the road to erode. So there are different types of curves are available. It is a low or mountable type, semi-barrier type, and barrier type. So low or mountable type, height of these curves will be 10 centimeter, and semi-barrier type 15 centimeter, barrier type 20 centimeter. So in case of a barrier type, you cannot allow the vehicle to shift from one lane to change one lane to another lane, and you can't cross those curves. But where in case of a mountable or low type curve, in some emergency cases or if the traffic flow is high, in such cases you can allow the vehicles to cross these curves and change the lanes. In case of a semi-barrier type, only in some emergency cases vehicles are allowed to change their lanes by crossing these semi-barrier type curves. And then road margins, some of the road margins, it is a shoulder, parking lane, frontage road, driveway, cycle track, footpath, guardrail, embankment slope. So all these are all some of the road margins. So shoulders are provided along the road edge to serve as an emergency lane. So in any emergency, if any breakdown of vehicles happen, so vehicles can be parked in a shoulder space and necessary things can be done. So according to IRC, minimum shoulder width should be 2.5 meter. Next, it is width of roadway or width of formation. So width of formation is nothing but the sum of width of pavement and width of shoulders. By including both, it is width of formation. So according to IRC, width of a formation under different terrains like plain and rolling terrain if it is, and if it is NH or SH, for single lane road under NH and SH, it is 12 meter. And then if it is mountainous and steep terrain, it can be reduced to 6.25. If it is a two lane road NH and SH, again it is a width of formation 12 meters, and it can be reduced to 8.8 meters in case of mountainous and steep terrain. And then MDR, major district road, if it is a single lane road, it is 9 and can be reduced to 4.75 for mountainous and steep. If it is two lane, it is again 9 meter. And then ODR, other district roads, if it is single lane, 7.5 meters width of formation minimum, that much width must be provided, and can be reduced to 4.75 meters in case of mountainous and steep terrain. If it is two lane road, it is 9 meters. In case of village roads, single lane, it can be 7.5 meters, and if it is mountainous and steep terrain, still it can be reduced to 4 meter. So these values important to remember for single marks questions in CQ. In multi-lane highways, roadway width should be adequate for requisite number of traffic lanes besides shoulder and central median. Minimum roadway width on single lane bridge is 4.25 meters. I read again. Minimum roadway width on single lane bridge. Okay, minimum roadway width on single lane bridge, it must be at least 4.25 meters. And then right of way. So it is the area of the land, or it is the area which is acquired are required for the road along its alignment. So it is acquired through agency which is responsible for it, and width of this acquired land is called as land width, and it depends on importance of road and possible future development also. So where exactly the road is going through, and what is the price of land over there to acquire, and future possible developments along that road, all these things should be considered before fixing the right of way, that is land width. Normal land width required for national highways and state highways on open plain terrain is 45 meters, and maximum land width required is 60 meters. The corresponding the corresponding width between building lanes is 80 meters, and that between control lines is 150 meters, thus allowing setback distance of 10 to 45 meter beyond the road boundary line with maximum recommended road width. So it is important to set this. Recommended land width of urban roads. So it can be 50 to 60 meters for arterial roads, 30 to 40 meters for subarterial roads, 20 to 30 meters for collector roads, and then 10 to 20 meters for local streets. So this is not as per IRC. Design control criteria. It depends on design speed, topography, traffic factors, design hourly volume and capacity, and environmental and other factors. And side distance. So it is the length of road visible ahead to the driver at any instance. So there are three types of side distances available. One is stopping side distance. So it is the minimum side distance available on a highway at any instant or spot. Should be length of sufficient length to stop a vehicle traveling at design speed, and without any collision safely it should be stopped. So it is called absolute minimum side distance or non-passing side distance. So some of the factors which affect side distance available on road to a driver at any instant is feature of road ahead, height of driver's eye above the road surface, height of the object available above the road surface. So IRC has suggested that height of high level of the driver it is 1.2 meter, and height of the object it is 0.15 meter above the road surface. So hence stopping distance available at a curve is that distance measured along the road surface at which an object is at the height of 0.15 meters can be seen by a driver whose eye is at an height of 1.2 meter above the road surface. So distance within which a motor vehicle can be stopped, it depends on total reaction time of driver, and it depends on speed of the vehicle, efficiency of brakes, frictional resistance between the roads and tires, and the gradients of the road, if any. So these are all some factors which will influence distance within which a motor can be stopped, that is SST. Total reaction time. So it is a total reaction time of the driver is the time taken from the instant the object is visible to the driver to the instant the brakes are applied effectively. So this time can be splitted into two parts: perception time and brake reaction time. Perception time, it is the time required for a driver to realize that brakes must be applied. So it can be explained properly by PIV theory. So according to this theory, total reaction time of driver is split into four parts. That is PIV means perception, intellection, emotion, and volition. When it comes to analysis of a stopping side distance, it can be split into lag distance and braking distance. So lag distance, it is given by V into T. V is the design speed of vehicle and T is the total reaction time. And then braking distance, it is the distance traveled by the vehicle after the application of brakes to a dead stop position is called braking distance. So after application of brakes it is, and lag distance, it is the distance traveled by the vehicle in between, like when the driver see the object and then when he arrives to apply the brake. So braking distance, it is V square by 2GF, where V is the design speed, F is the coefficient of friction, G is the acceleration due to gravity. And the recommended values of coefficient of friction, longitudinal coefficient of friction, it is 0.4 if the design speed is 20 to 30 km per hour, and it is 0.35 when the design speed is 100 km per hour. So it ranges from 0.35 to 0.4. So now stopping side distance, we divided lag distance and braking distance. So lag distance you saw over here, V into T, and then braking distance you saw over here, it is V square by 2GF. You can add it. Stopping side distance equal to Vt plus V square by 2GF. So here the design speed is meter per second. Smaller V we have placed over here. If you convert that to kilometer per hour, this same equation can be rewritten as stopping side distance equal to 0.278 V into T plus V square by, you can substitute for G, so that you will get 254 times of F, where V is in terms of kilometer per hour. So stopping side distance at slopes. So this stopping side distance equation, it is on flat surfaces. So if it is on slopes, stopping side distance equal to Vt plus V square by 2G into F plus or minus 0.01 times of N. So this plus and minus, it depending upon whether the slope is ascending or descending. So positive sign is used for ascending slope, negative sign is used for descending slope. So depending upon that, you can use the sign convention. If speed V is in terms of kilometer per hour, this equation can be rewritten as 0.278 capital V into T plus V square by 254 into F plus or minus 0.01 times of N. So if stopping side distance required on descending gradient is higher, then it is necessary to determine the critical value of stopping side distance for the descending gradient on the roads with gradient and two-way traffic flow. So that is important if it is higher. And minimum stopping side distance equal to stopping side distance for one-way traffic lanes and also in two-way traffic roads when there are two or more lanes. If there exist more than two lanes, then as per this equation it is calculated SST, that is the minimum SST. So on roads with restricted width on single lane roads, when two-way movement of traffic is permitted, both the side, in both the direction the vehicles are traveling on single lane road means, so this minimum stopping side distance must be equal to two times of stopping side distance calculated here. if it is single lane road. So when stopping side distance for the design speed is not available on any section of the road, then speed should be restricted by a warning sign and suitable speed limit regulation can be posted there. To come for numerical example problems, calculate safe stopping side distance for a design speed of 50 kilometer per hour, and in that first case it is two-way traffic on two-lane road. So two-way traffic, two-lane road. There are two-lane roads, two lanes are there. So that whatever it is calculated SST, so that is the minimum SST which is required. And second case, it is two-way traffic on single lane road. So two-way traffic on single lane road means whatever SST you have calculated, that is two times of that it is required. That is safe stopping distance. So that is what I explained over here. Minimum SST which is required on two-way and two-lane roads and two-way single-lane roads. So here the coefficient of friction need to be mentioned. If it is not mentioned, here it is not mentioned, so that we have to take. But however, in gate examination, it must be given or mentioned. Assume coefficient of friction over here as a 0.37 and reaction time of the driver as 2.5 seconds. Even both the data will be given in the question. So stopping side distance, we know that it is lag distance plus braking distance, that is Vt plus V square by 2gf. And you can also use the equation in terms of kilometer per hour, which is standardized. So in question, it is given speed 50 kilometer per hour. We are using this equation where V is in terms of meter per second. So convert this kilometer per hour speed to meter per second, that is 50 divided by 3.6. So you will get 13.9 meter per second. So that is the design speed in terms of a meter per second. And total reaction time of driver, we assumed it has 2.5 seconds. And then G, it is 9.8. F is 0.37. Again, that is assumed value over here. So substitute all, that is Vt. V is 13.9, T is 2.5 plus V square by 2gf. So F is 0.37. If we calculate, we'll get 61.4 meter stopping side distance. So alternative equation, if you substitute a velocity in terms of kilometer per hour, we can use 0.278 capital V into T plus capital V square divided by 254 F. So V can be substituted in terms of kilometer per hour and you will get 61.4 meter, again the same value. So as said earlier, stopping side distance when there are two lanes, it is as it is calculated, that is 61.4 meters. And second case, stopping side distance for two-way traffic on single lane road, it is two times of a side distance which is calculated over here. So that is two times of 61.4, it is equal to 122.8 meters. So it's a simple task to calculate. And then another example with slope or gradient. Calculate the stopping side distance on a highway at a descending gradient of 2% for a design speed of 80 km per hour. And here it is given, assume other data as per IRC recommendations. So IRC recommendations you saw over here is coefficient of friction, you can see. So 80 km per hour is the design speed, and according to IRC, it is 0.35 is the longitudinal coefficient of friction it is mentioned. So as per that, we can take over here value of F as a 0.35 and then total reaction time it is 2.5 seconds again. So design speed you can convert it to a meter per second, that will gives you 22.2 meter per second. And then there is descending gradient, so with a negative sign you can mention that is 2% or 2 divided by 100, that is minus 0.02 and G is 9.8 again. So substitute all these values. V value as 22.2 meter per second, T as 2.5 seconds, and F as 0.35, and N value as 0.02. As it is mentioned, it is descending gradient. We have used negative sign over here, so that if you calculate, we are going to get it as 131.7 meters as stopping side distance. So in terms of kilometer per hour, if you substitute directly this formula you can use, you will get the same answer. So that's all. Some examples on calculation of stopping side distance under different conditions. So some of the recommended stopping side distance value for different speeds as per IRC. If the design speed is 100 kilometer per hour, the safe stopping side distance, it is 180 meters. If it is 20 meters, it is 20, 25, 25, 30, 30, and from 40 it will change. For 40 kmph, it is 45 meters. For 50 kmph, it is 60. For 60 kmph, it is 8. Okay, up to 100 it is mentioned. It is 180 meters. So next, you come for overtaking side distance. You name it as OSD shorthand. The minimum distance open to the vision of driver of a vehicle intending to overtake a slow moving vehicle ahead with safety against the traffic of opposite directions without any collision with the vehicle coming from opposite side. So how much the distance is open to the vision of driver who is intending to overtake a slow moving vehicle. So that distance we call it as overtaking side distance or safe passing distance. So its analysis you come for. So assume that there are two vehicles. B1 is the slow moving vehicle and B is the slow moving vehicle, A is the fast moving vehicle. So vehicle A wants to overtake vehicle B. At the same time, there is vehicle C which is coming from opposite side. So distance between vehicle A and vehicle B, you can take it as a safe distance, that is S. So how much time it takes to overtake from passing from position A2 to A3. So that time can be named as capital T, and the time taken for the vehicle A to travel from position A1 to A2, so that can be taken as small t. So by the time when the vehicle A from position A2 to A3 it passes, by the time the vehicle C move from position C1 to C2. So time taken by the vehicle to travel from C1 to C2 is again capital T, and it travels a distance of T3. And at the same time, the vehicle B travel from position B1 to B2 by the time capital T, and you can take that distance as B. So distance traveled by vehicle A initially, you can take that design. So this much distance, that is D1, the vehicle A have to travel with a design speed of vehicle B only. So that if the design speed of vehicle B is known, means you can calculate distance traveled by vehicle A from A1 to A2. So that is D1 equal to VB into T. And this D2 is nothing but B plus S, nothing but B plus 2S, where S can be calculated as an empirical relationship 0.7 times of VB plus 6 meters, where T is the time taken from A2 to A3, and then distance D3 is equal to V into T. So velocity or design speed of vehicle C into capital T, where this overtaking process finishes. That time you have to substitute here. So you can remember these formulas: OST D1 plus D2 plus DT D3, which is nothing but VB into T plus VB into capital T plus 2S plus V into capital T. If you convert this into kilometer per hour, you can remember this formula also. 0.28 VB into T plus 0.28 VB into capital T plus 2S plus 0.28 V into capital T. VB is the speed of overtaken vehicle. V is the speed of overtaking vehicle. And total time taken for this overtaking process, it can be calculated, that is root of 4s by a. Maximum overtaking acceleration at different speeds. So if the speed is 40 and time can be 15 seconds and overtaking side distance can be 165 meters, and then if the design speed is 100 kilometer per hour, time capital T can be 23 seconds and OST must be 640 meters. As design speed increases, overtaking side distance required increases. If speed of overtaken vehicle is not given in the analysis, you can calculate with the design speed or speed of overtaking vehicle by deducting 16 kmph. So VB will be equal to V minus 16 kmph. Part overtaking section. Minimum overtaking side distance required is D1 plus D2 plus D3, where two-way traffic exists. If there exists only one-way traffic, there is no vehicle coming from opposite side means, so this D3 is not at all required. No, this D3 is not at all required if it is one way. If it is two-way, then only the vehicle comes from opposite direction. So D3 also must be added in overtaking distance. So if it is one-way traffic, OSD will be D1 plus D2. So some of the keynotes you need to remember. On divided highways with 4 or more lanes, IRC suggested that it is not necessary to provide the usual OSD. So it is mentioned 4 or more lanes. So if it is less than 4 lanes, then required OSD must be calculated and provided. OSD at both ascending and descending gradients are taken equal to the at level stretch. So, however, at grades, OSD should be greater than minimum OSD required at level. Overtaking side distance values, thus obtaining for various speeds, are rounded off by the IRC. So, these are all the keynotes you need to remember. So, in overtaking zones, signpost can be provided or posted so that drivers will get to know that they can easily overtake in such areas where width of road which is increased there, and proper visibility also the driver is going to get. Minimum length of overtaking zone should be 3 times of safe overtaking zone. Whatever OSD we calculated, the zone length should be at least 3 times. And for one-way roads, it is D into D1 plus D2. For two-way roads, it is 3 times of D1 plus D2 plus D3. So it depends on one-way or two-way. It is desirable to keep length of overtaking zones 5 times of OSD actually. In some restricted places or lack of space, you can reduce it to 3 times of OSD. And a signpost SP1 and SP2 where overtaking zone which is coming. So at that point, SP1 can be posted. Where overtaking zone is going to end at that place SP2 can be posted. So for one-way traffic, OSD equal to D1 plus D2. For two-way traffic, already it said D1 plus D2 plus D3. At uncontrolled intersections, sufficient clearance to the sight lines may be given to provide for stopping side distance. And at stretches of road where required, OSC cannot be provided as per IRC recommendation. As per as possible, intermediate side distance at least should be provided, where ISD will be equal to 2 times of SSD must be provided. One numerical example you come for. The speed of overtaking and overtaken vehicles are 70 kmph and 40 kmph respectively on a two-way traffic roads. If the acceleration of a overtaking vehicle is 0.99 meter per second square, calculate a safe OSD and mention minimum length of overtaking zones. Okay, these two things we need to calculate. OSD we have to calculate, and then minimum length of overtaking zone is to be calculated. And the data given is speed of overtaking and overtaken vehicles, that is 70 and 40 kmph respectively, and acceleration of overtaking vehicle, it is 0.99 meter per second. We know that overtaking side distance for two-way traffic, it is d1 plus d2 plus d3. So assume that design speed as the speed of overtaking vehicle. So 70 kmph is given. So that convert into meter per second, we will get 19.4 meter per second. And overtaken vehicle speed, if you convert it, will get 11.1 meter per second. Acceleration, it is given 0.99 meter per second square. And d1, we know that vb into t. So that is design speed of overtaken vehicle, and then t, actually this t, if it is mentioned, accordingly we have to take, otherwise we can adopt or assume it as 2 seconds. So 22.2 meters is the d1 value, and then d2 value you come for. So d2 is this, so 2s plus b plus 2s. Okay, this is to be calculated. So yes, you know that 0.7 times of vb plus 6, which can be calculated. So d2 equal to vb into capital T plus 2s, where s equal to 0.7 times of vb plus 6. So vb is 11.11 meter per second. So that if you substitute, we'll get 13.8 meters. And the total time for this overtaking process can be calculated by using formula t equal to root of 4s divided by a, and s is the value 13.8, which is calculated, divided by a value, it is given 0.99. If we substitute, we are going to get 7.47 seconds is the time required for overtaking process. So this is the d2 value, that is vb into t. We substitute 11.11 into capital T is 7.47 plus 2 times of s. So it is 2 into s value is 13.8 meters. So that will get 110.5 meters d2 value. And then d3 value, v into t, where v is the design speed of vehicle A and t already calculated 7.47. So 19.4 into 7.47 will get 144.9 meters. So OSD equal to d1 plus d2 plus d3, that is 22.2 meters, 110.5 meters, 144.9 meters. Totally we will get 277.6 meters is the overtaking side distance. So we can round it up to 278 meters. So second sub question which is asked in the question, minimum length of overtaking zone. So minimum length of overtaking zone which is required, it is 3 times of OSD. Actually desirable length of OSD is 5 times of OSD. Here in the question it is mentioned minimum length of OSD. So 3 times of 278 we will get 834 meters, and the desirable length of OSD is 5 times, so that we will get 1390 meters is the desirable length of OSD, overtaking zone, not OSD, it is overtaking zone. And third one, it is side distance at intersection, third type of side distance in transportation engineering. So IRC recommends that at uncontrolled intersections, sufficient visibility should be provided such that side distance on each road is at least equal to stopping side distance corresponding to the design speed of the road. At least that much it is to be provided, at least on SST. IRC recommends that a minimum visibility distance of a 15-meter along the minor road and a distance of 220-meter, 180, 145, and 110 meters along major road corresponding to a design speed of 100, 80, 65, and 60 kmph respectively may be provided. So for 60 it is 110, for 100 kmph it is 220 meters. So at least that much side distance at intersection can be provided. Apart from these three situations above which are explained, that is SSD, OSD and side distance at intersection, following side distances are considered by IRC in highway design. So one is intermediate side distance, another is headlight side distance. So intermediate side distance can be provided two times of stopping side distance. So when overtaking, side distance cannot be provided. Intermediate side, if OSD is not cannot be provided, means intermediate side distance is provided to give limited overtaking opportunity to fast moving vehicles. It depends on the skill of driver. So within that two times of SSD, whether he can be or she can be able to overtake the vehicle or not. And then headlight side distance. So this is the distance visible to a driver during night time driving under illumination of the vehicle headlights. So this side distance is critical at up gradients and at the ascending stretch of the valley of curves. So these are all some side distance considerations. And so we are done with side distance, different side distances, and how to calculate. Next topic, design of a horizontal alignment of road. So some of the design factors are to be considered in horizontal alignment. So one is design speed. So design speed of the vehicle depends upon the class of the road and terrain, and different terrains depending upon the cross slope of the road country. So it can be classified as plain terrain if the cross slope is 0 to 10%. So if it is ranging between 10 to 25%, it can be classified as rolling. And if it is ranging between 25 to 60%, it can be classified as mountainous. And if it is greater than 60% cross slope, then it is classified as steep terrain. Ruling design speed suggested for the national highways and state highways of our country passing through plain terrain is 100 kmph and through rolling terrain is 80 kmph. So NH and SH. So through plain terrain it is 100 kmph and through rolling terrain it is 80 kmph. So recommended design speed for different classes of urban roads. It is 80 km per hour for arterial roads, 60 for subarterial, 50 for collector streets, 30 kmph for local streets. And horizontal curve design you come for. So when the vehicle travels on horizontal curve, normally it experiences a centrifugal force. So this centrifugal force will lead the vehicle to uh, topple. So it is not advisable to pass the vehicle which is not at incorrect design speed. So it is important to construct the roads to avoid these toppling of vehicles due to centrifugal force. And when the vehicles are passing through horizontal curves, so this centrifugal force is counteracted by the weight of the vehicle and then frictional force between the tires and roads. So centrifugal force on curves when it goes to, it is W V square divided by GR. You can calculate where W is the weight of vehicle, R is the radius of curve, and V is the speed of vehicle which is traveling. And the ratio of a centrifugal force to the weight of the vehicle if you take, so P divided by W if you bring here, so you will get a constant value, that is V square divided by GR. So centrifugal ratio, it depends on radius of curve, and design speed of vehicle. Centrifugal force acting on vehicle negotiating a horizontal curve has following two effects: tendency to overturn the vehicle outwards about the outer wheel, and tendency to hit the vehicle laterally outwards. So, if a sufficient friction is not generated between the wheels and the roads, so it leads to hit of the vehicle laterally outwards. And a sufficient cant is not provided, there may be a chances of toppling of vehicles. So, analysis of stability of these two conditions without any super elevation. If a super elevation is provided, these things can be contracted. Overturning effect you come for, you can take a moment about one wheel. So here P into H. So if you take a moment about A, because here only if the vehicle is traveling in this direction, so inner wheel A can be moving up due to overturning effect. So if you take a moment of all these forces acting on vehicle about contact point of wheel A with the surface. So P, that is the CG of vehicle, and vertical height H if you take. So P into H, that is the moment, and then you can equate that to moment of weight of the vehicle, that is W into B divided by 2. So again you can calculate the centrifugal ratio, that is P by W equal to B by H, where B is the width between two wheels of vehicle and H is the height of CG of vehicle from road surface. And P and W, that P is a centrifugal force and W is the weight of vehicle. So this is if pressure at A, if it is 0, there is a danger of overturning when the centrifugal ratio P by W or V square by GR attains a value of B by H. So when P by W equal to B by 2H, that is a condition where pressure at A is 0. So there is a danger of overturning. So this is one case. And another case, that is a transverse skidding effect. So at equilibrium, so overall resistance offered by this friction is frictional force at A and frictional force at B. If the centrifugal force is towards right, that is P, frictional force will be towards left. So that value P equal to, at equilibrium condition, FA plus FP, where FA is calculated by the normal reaction RA and RB with the coefficient of friction F. So F into RA, F into RB, F is common, RA plus RB. So RA plus RB is nothing but weight of vehicle, so that centrifugal force can be equated to F into W. So again, centrifugal ratio P by W will be equal to F. So when centrifugal ratio attains a value equal to coefficient of lateral friction, there is a danger of lateral skidding when P by W equal to F. That case you need to see. So thus, to avoid overturning and lateral skidding on a horizontal curve, centrifugal ratio should be less than B by 2H value, this B by 2H value, and then value F. It is to be kept less than that. If F is less than B by 2H, then skidding occur first. If B by 2H is less than F, then overturning will occur first. So questions on this can be asked whether skidding occurs first or overturning occur first by giving some values and asked you to calculate the B by 2H value and compare with F. So this centrifugal force can be contracted by providing a super elevation. You can raise the outer edge of the road with respect to inner edge, so that uh, CG is going to shift. Then this overturning effect can be contracted. And the super elevation here figure shows the road top surface can be given somewhat like this. Okay, so capital E is the super elevation. So E equal to tan theta here. So as super elevation is 2 less, if you multiply E with this sine theta equated to E by B, that is if you take a right angle triangle over here, so sine theta will be equal to opposite by hypotenuse. So hypotenuse is B, that is the width of pavement, and opposite is E, the vertical height which is raised. So sine theta equal to E by B, where sine theta can be taken as E, that is a super elevation, so that capital E will be equal to super elevation into E. So that is where we can calculate the vertical height of the outer edge of the road rise with respect to inner edge. If value E is super elevation rate and capital E is the total super elevated height of the outer edge, then total rise in the road edge of the pavement with respect to inner edge is given by E plus F equal to V square by GR. So this equation you need to remember. So E and F, these two parameters are going to counteract this centrifugal force, and V square by GR is an acting force, E plus F is the contracting force, okay, where E is the rate of super elevation, F is the design value of lateral friction coefficient, V is the speed of vehicle in terms of meter per second, capital R is the radius of horizontal curve, and G is the acceleration due to gravity, that is 9.8 meter per second square. So if velocity is in terms of kilometer per hour, this equation can be rewritten as E plus F equal to V square divided by 127 R, where V is in terms of kilometer per hour. If coefficient of friction is neglected or assumed equal to 0, so that is F equal to 0, then the value E will be equal to V square by GR or V square by capital V square by 127 R. So if super elevation is provided according to this formula, then the pressure on outer and inner will be equal. So according to this formula. So when super elevation is not possible to provide, then allowable speed of the vehicle negotiating a turn should be restricted to the condition. So F equal to V square by GR, that is V square by 127 R, need to be calculated, where V is unknown over here and F is known over here, so that V will be equal to root of 127 F into R. So that is the restricted speed need to be calculated and posted on road. And the maximum super elevation can be provided on road. It is 7% according to IRC, and it can be 10% on hill roads. In urban road stretches with frequent intersections, 4% can be provided, keeping in view of convenience in construction and turning movement of vehicle. So if the value of calculated super elevation E is lesser than the camber of the road surface which is provided. So camber is provided for draining out the water from road surface, and the calculated V, both we compare. If the value of E which is less than camber which is required, then the minimum super elevation is to be provided on the horizontal curve. Maybe that may be limited to camber of the surface for the better drainage of water. So higher the value of both can be provided. And the design of super elevation you come for. From practical consideration, super elevation should be provided to fully counteract the centrifugal force due to 75% of design speed. So 75% means in place of V, you can write 0.7 times of V whole square, and you can simplify it to a formula capital V square by 225 R. where V is in terms of kilometer per hour. And the second step, in first step, E to be calculated, that is superelevation, and how much it is coming you can check. And in the second step, you need to compare it. So whether this superelevation value is less than 7% or greater than 7%. If it is less than 7%, then the value so obtained, whatever it is obtained, can be provided. If it is greater than 7%, that is 0.07, then provide a maximum superelevation which is equal to 0.07. You cannot cross 7%. So 7% must be given, and proceed with the next step, step 3 and step 4. So in step 3, we will check the coefficient of friction developed for maximum value of superelevation, that is 0.07, that is that is 7%. So E plus F equal to V square by GR formula we are having. So F will be equal to V square by GR minus E, and E already we fixed as it is greater than 7%, so it is equal to 7%, that is 0.07. And if the calculated value of F is less than 0.15, then the value of superelevation 7% is safe for the design speed. If not, even after providing 0.07 of superelevation, the value of F is coming greater than 0.15, means you have to calculate the allowable speed or restricted speed over here by substituting the value of E as 0.07 and value of F as 0.15. Allowable speed VA need to be calculated. You can cross multiply it and you can take root of that. You will get allowable design speed. If allowable speed is greater than design speed, then the design is adequate. If allowable speed is less than design speed, then speed is limited to allowable speed VA kmph calculated as above in step 4. Approximate warning signpost and a speed limit regulation sign are installed to restrict and regulate the speed at such curves. Minimum radii of a horizontal curve for different terrain conditions to maintain design speed of vehicle as per IRC. Minimum radius of a horizontal curve R minimum can be calculated as V square divided by 127 into E plus F. One example problem you come for. Design the rate of superelevation for a horizontal highway curve of radius 500 meters and speed of 100 km per hour. So here the design speed is given as 100 km per hour and curve radius is given as 500 meters. So the rate of superelevation to be provided need to be calculated, and for mixed traffic conditions the superelevation can be calculated for 75% of design speed. So that E is equal to V square divided by 225 times of R. So value of V is given 600 kmph and R value is 500 meters. We can substitute. We will get 0.089 is the superelevation. But according to IRC, we can't provide more than 7%, that is 0.07. Here 0.089 is greater than 0.07, so we have to go for step 2. So that is E plus F equal to V square divided by GR, and E can be sent to this side. So in terms of kmph, 127R, F equal to V square by 127R minus 0.07 can be calculated. And if this value is less than 0.15, that is fine. Otherwise, you will have to calculate restricted speed. Here, V square by 127R will get 0.157 minus 0.07 will gives you 0.087, which is less than 0.15. So provided superelevation is sufficient to counteract the centrifugal force. So as the value is less than 0.15, the design is safe with the superelevation 0.07. So this is how to design horizontal curve with superelevation. And another example over here, the design speed of a highway is 80 km per hour, and there is a horizontal curve of radius 200 meter on a certain locality. So radius is 200 meters and design speed is 80 km per hour. We have to calculate the super elevation needed to maintain this speed. So what is the super elevation? If the maximum super elevation is of 7% is not to be exceeded, we have to calculate the maximum allowable speed on this horizontal curve as it is not possible to increase the radius. So there is a restriction of radius. We have to see the super elevation of 7% is okay or not. Otherwise, if it is not okay, we have to calculate the restricted or allowable speed. Safe limit of transverse coefficient of friction it is 0.15 it is given. So for 75% that is v square divided by 225 r can be calculated. So value of E is 0.142 which is much greater than 0.07 that is 7%. So you can go for step 2 that is E plus F equal to v square by 127 r. Substitute the value of E as 0.07 and the value of F we are going to get it as 0.18, where this 0.18 is greater than the allowable coefficient of friction 0.15. So if it is greater than that, the provided super elevation is not sufficient to counteract the centrifugal force. So in such case, we need to calculate the restricted speed. So same equation E plus F equal to V square by 127 R. So in this case, E and F value that is 0.07 and 0.15 need to be substituted. So VA will be equal to root of 27.94 into R. So that is 74.75 kilometer per hour is the allowable speed. So on this curve, you cannot cross the speed 74.75, which can be rounded up to lower value that is 74 kilometer per hour. If we exceed this speed, there is a chance of toppling of vehicle or skidding of the vehicle. And attainment of super elevation during construction. To crown the camber sections at the straight before start of the transition curve should be changed to a single cross slope equal to desired super elevation at the beginning of a circular curve. So this change may be conveniently attained at a gradual and uniform rate throughout the transition length of the horizontal curve. So gradually we have to attain this super elevation, and full super elevation is attained by the end of transition curve or at the beginning of circular curve. So attainment of super elevation may be split up into following two parts: elimination of a crown of the cambered section and then rotation of pavement to attain the full super elevation. So in these two methods we can do. Super elevation is introduced by rise in the outer edge of pavement at a rate not exceeding 1 in 150 in case of plain and rolling terrain and 1 in 60 on mountainous and steep terrain. It is according to IRC. 1 in 150 that is the rate and 1 in 60 in case of mountainous and steep terrain. So that is attainment of super elevation. Next, it is a radius of horizontal curves. Ruling minimum radius of a curve for ruling design speed v meter per second or v kilometer per hour. It is, we know that E plus F equal to v square by gr. So you just make the modification, bring the r left side and E plus F you send to the denominator. So that ruling radius r will be equal to v square by E plus F into g. When minimum design speed v is adopted, instead of ruling design speed v, then absolute minimum radius of curve is given by v square by 127 into E plus F, where v is substituted in terms of kilometer per hour. So an example for calculation of ruling minimum radius of horizontal curve. calculate the value of ruling minimum and absolute minimum radius of horizontal curves of a national highway in plain terrain. Assume ruling design speed and minimum design speed value is 180 km per hour respectively. So ruling minimum radius value of V is 100 km per hour and value of E and F it is fixed 0.07 and 0.15, and in case of 80 km per hour you can substitute 80. In case of 100 km per hour we'll get 357.9 meter ruling minimum radius, and absolute minimum radius we get 229.1 meter. And widening of pavement on horizontal curves. So when the vehicle travel on horizontal curve, the rear wheel will not follow exactly the front wheel. So due to which there is an extra space which is required for the vehicles to travel over horizontal curves. So required extra widening. For this requirement, we have to widen the pavement on horizontal curves. So required extra widening of pavement at the horizontal curve, it depends on some factors. Length of the wheelbase of vehicle, it depends on. If the length of wheelbase is greater widening of road is required. If it is less, it is less. Radius of a curve negotiated, that is R, and psychological factors, which is a function of a speed of vehicle and radius of curve. So psychological factors also will influence over here. So when it comes to horizontal curves, vehicle traveling on, so driver psychology is to travel at the outer edge of the road. So extra widening is equal to mechanical widening plus psychological widening. Mechanical widening, it is given by NL square divided by 2R, where N is the number of traffic lanes and L is the length of wheelbase. Normally it is taken as 6 meters and maximum length of wheelbase. And then the psychological widening is V square divided by 9.5 times of root R, where R is the radius of horizontal curve in meters. So here note that WPS, that is psychological widening, is important in pavement with more than one lane. Recommended extra widening of pavement at horizontal curve BIRC. So if it is a two lane up to 20 meter of a radius, it is 1.5 meter of extra width is required. If it is single lane, it is 0.9 meters. As the radius increases, radius of curve increases, extra widening required uh, keeps on decreasing. You can observe up to 60 meters of radius of curve, there is a requirement of extra width on horizontal alignment. So that is 0.6 meters and 1.2 meter up to 60 meter of radius of curve. If the radius of curve increases up to 300 meters and above, then there is no requirement of any extra widening at all. So in question you need to observe first the radius of curve. If it is mentioned over there the radius of curve as 310 meters, it is not required to calculate by using these formulas and come up with the answer. So directly you can say it is 0, not at all required any extra widening, and it is provided in this manner. This dotted line show the actual width of the road, and this WA divided by 2 shows an extra widening. We are gradually increasing and decreasing where straight transition comes. One example problem for the calculation of extra widening on road. Calculate the extra widening required for a pavement of width 7 meters on a horizontal curve of radius 250 meters. So radius of a curve is 250 meters. If the longest wheelbase of the vehicle expected on the road is 7 meters. So wheelbase length, it is 7 meters, it is given. L value. Design speed is 70 kilometer per hour here. Compare the value obtained with IRC recommendations. So we have IRC recommendations over here. Now we are calculating extra widening. So extra widening, it is split into mechanical and psychological. Mechanical, it is NL square divided by 2R. Value of L is given in question, that is 7 meters. And then number of lanes. So number of lanes, extra widening, as it is given a 7 meter as the width of road, it is a 2 lane road. So in place of N, we can substitute 2. 2 into 7 square divided by 2R, where R is radius of curve, it is 250 meter, it is given here. And then psychological widening, V divided by 9.5 into root R, where V is 70 and R is 250. If we substitute, we'll get 0.662 meters. It is the required extra widening. So according to IRC, here the design speed is 70 km per hour, it is given. So for 70 km per hour, a minute, radius of curve is given as 250 meters. So for 250 meters, it comes in between 101 to 300 meters. It is for 2 lane road. So IRC has suggested 0.6 meter of extra widening. And here we have got 0.662. The IRC recommends extra widening of 0.6 meter when the radius ranges between 101 to 300 meters. So as calculated 0.662, so this can be provided, which is greater than 0.6 meters. And another example on calculation of extra widening of roads, find the total width of pavement on a horizontal curve for a new national highway to be aligned along a rolling terrain with a rolling minimum radius. So the data is given, the number of lanes it is 2 and width of pavement it is 7 meters, and the design speed, ruling design speed, it is 80 kilometers per hour, and length of wheelbase 6 meters, and maximum value of super elevation 7%, and friction or skid resistance it is 0.15. Ruling minimum radius, it is not given over here, we will have to calculate. So ruling minimum radius, we know the formula, v square divided by 127 into E plus F. The value of E and value of F are given, that is 7% and 0.15, and value of design speed, ruling design speed also it is given. So ruling radius equal to 229 meters we are going to get. So value of R we got, which is required for calculation of extra widening. So extra widening equal to NL square divided by 2R plus V divided by 9.5 into root R. Substitute the value of N as 2, L as 6, R as 230. To be precise, 229 need to be substituted over here. So here it is rounded up to 230 meters. So you are going to get an extra widening of 0.712 meters. So in question, it is mentioned that find the total width of the pavement on a horizontal curve. So 7 meter is the width of pavement plus extra widening it is 0.712 meters. So the total width of road is 7.712 meters is the total width of road. So this is how to calculate an extra widening. Next topic you come for transition curves on horizontal curve we are going to use, and some of the functions of transition curve in the horizontal alignment of highway are, it helps us to introduce gradually the centrifugal force between tangent point and the beginning of circular curve. So it will avoid a sudden jerk of the vehicle. So that is one use, and it helps us to enable the driver to turn the steering gradually for his own comfort and security. So slowly and easily it will allow the driver to turn the steering, and then it will allow us to enable the gradual introduction of a design super elevation and also the extra widening of pavement at the start of the circular curve, and it will improve the aesthetical appearance of road. So these are all some advantages of providing transition curve on horizontal curve. And the ideal shape of transition curve, it is spiral transition. So different shape of a transition curve we have. That is a spiral, clatoid, a lemniscate, a cubical. Okay. So when it comes to spiral transition curve, it should be such that the rate of introduction of a centrifugal force or rate of change of centrifugal acceleration should be constant in this case. So in an ideal transition curve, the length of transition curve, that is LS, should be inversely proportional to the radius. So that is LS is proportional to 1 by R. So that if you cross multiply it, this proportionality constant, we can keep it LS into R equal to constant. And the types of transition curve, it is spiral, lemniscate, and cubic parabola. So spiral, it is an ideal transition curve, which is good on horizontal curve, and you can calculate length of this by using formula root of 2r into LS. IRC recommends use of a spiral as a transition curve in horizontal alignment of a highway because of the following advantages. Spiral curve satisfy the requirement of ideal transition curve, and the geometric property of a spiral is such that the calculation and setting out of a curve in the field is simple and easy. These are all two advantages where we can adopt spiral transition curve on horizontal alignment, and other transition curves are lemniscate and cubic parabola. And the length of a transition curve, uh, so it can be calculated under different scenario. So first, it can be calculated based on rate of change of centrifugal acceleration, and it can be calculated based on rate of introduction of design superelevation, and it can be calculated by using some empirical formulas. So among these three methods, which is the maximum value that can be adopted as the length of transition curve? So rate of change of centrifugal acceleration is given by C equal to V cube divided by Ls into R. So where V is the design speed, Ls is the length of transition curve, and R is the radius of curve. So C is the rate of change of allowable rate of change of centrifugal acceleration. So as per ARC recommendation, the equation is 80 divided by 75 plus B. You can calculate value of C for given design speed, and this value should lie in between 0.5 to 0.8. So length of transition curve you can calculate by calculating the value of C, that is V cube divided by C into R. So Ls is the length of transition curve, C is the allowable rate of change of centrifugal acceleration, and R is the radius of circular curve. And when it comes to rate of introduction of a designed super elevation, if the pavement is rotated about the center line, so then you can use the formula Ls equal to E into W plus WE into N divided by 2. So this W plus WE, W plus WE is nothing but width of pavement, that is B, and E is the given super elevation, and N is the rate of change of super elevation given. So if pavement is rotated about the inner edge, so then it is not required to divide it by 2. So we are trying to rotate it about the inner edge, so that length of transition curve will be equal to E into W plus WE into N. So half of this value is we are going to get if we rotate the pavement with respect to center line. And by using some empirical formulas for plane and rolling terrain, so it is given as a 2.7 v square divided by R, and for mountainous and steep terrain it is v square divided by R. And the shift of a transition curve you can calculate, that is ls square divided by 24 times of r, where ls is the length of transition curve and r is the radius. So greater of these three should be adopted as length of transition curve. And one example problem for calculation of length of transition curve. Calculate the length of transition curve and the value of shift using the following data. The design speed of vehicle is 65 km per hour, and the radius of circular curve it is 220 meters, and the allowable rate of introduction of superelevation it is 1 in 150. So sometimes it can be mentioned the pavement is rotated about center line. In such cases, directly you can take 1 in 150, and width of pavement including extra widening you can take it as 7.5 meter. This is the given data, and by using three methods as explained before. So first method, length of a transition curve as per the allowance of rate of centrifugal acceleration. So rate of centrifugal acceleration C, it can be calculated by using formula 80 divided by 75 plus V, where V is 65 kmph which is given. So that we are going to get value of C as 0.57 meter per second cube. So it must lie between 0.5 to 0.8. So 0.57 is lying in between. So it is accepted. And then length of a transition curve 0.0215 V cube divided by CR. So you just substitute the value of V 65, value of C just now calculated 0.57, and value of R it is given in question, that is 220. So that we are going to get 47.1 meter as length of transition curve. And then a second way of calculating it is length of transition curve based on allowable rate of introduction of superelevation. So for calculation of superelevation, E equal to that is 75% of design speed we need to take, so that V square divided by 225R will get 0.085. So we can't provide more than 7%. So allowable maximum rate of superelevation 0.07 can be limited. So for the limited superelevation, we can calculate the friction F equal to V square by 127R minus E. So we'll get 0.08. 0.08 is less than 0.15. So provided superelevation is sufficient to counteract the centrifugal force. So total width of the pavement at curve it is 7.5 meter, and the total rise of the outer edge of the pavement with respect to inner edge. So that is a capital E divided by 2. So E is nothing but small e into B. Small e is the super elevation value, that is 0.07 we provided, and B is the 7.5 meter width of the pavement, and 0.26 meters is the rise of outer edge of the pavement with respect to inner edge of the pavement we are going to get. So you know that small e equal to E by 2, and you can plus multiply. So rate of introduction of a super elevation, that is 1 in n. So in question itself 1 in 150 is given. So value of n is 150 here. So length of super elevation, length of transition curve equal to capital E into n divided by 2. So capital E is nothing but 0.26 already calculated into the value of n is 150. So we will get 39 meters. And then minimum value of length of super transition curve as per IRC recommendation in empirical formulas, that is 2.7 V square divided by R, where V is 65. So that we will get 51.9 meters. So just compare these values 39, 51.9 meters, and then 47.1 meters. Among these three values, 51.9 meter is the greatest value, so that it can be rounded up to 52 meter. This is the length of transition curve. So 52 meters we got, and then it is asked to calculate a shift also. So value shift equal to ls length of transition curve square divided by 24 times of r. If we substitute, we'll get 0.51. Next topic, it is a setback distance or a clearance distance on a horizontal curves. There may be some instances or some places where some obstructions may come at the places of a horizontal curves, due to which there is poor visibility for the drivers. So there should be certain setback distance should be provided between the obstructions and the center line of highway. So how to calculate that one? It is required from the center line of a horizontal curve to an obstruction on inner side of the curve to provide adequate side distance. It depends on the required side distance, and it depends on radius of horizontal curve, and it also depends on length of the curve. If the length of curve is greater than the required stopping side distance, so in such case, how much should be setback distance? So you can calculate setback distance m equal to r minus r cos alpha by 2. So m equal to r into 1 minus cos alpha by 2, where alpha is the deviation angle for this curve and r is the radius of curve. M is the setback distance, and r you can calculate as s divided by r. So s is this distance and r is the radius of curve. In case of wide roads with two or more lanes, there may exist more than a single lane. Two or more lanes are there. If d is the distance between center line of road and the center line of inner lane, so here it is showing. So d is the distance between center line of overall road with multiple lanes, and this dotted line is the center line of inner lane. So this is the value of d. So in such cases, the value of setback distance will be equal to r minus d. So this distance we should consider r minus d into cos alpha by 2, where alpha is given by s divided by r minus d. So this is the way how you can calculate the setback distance. If the length of curve is less than the required side distance, so in such case you can use this formula m equal to r minus d into cos alpha by 2 plus s minus lc divided by 2 into sin alpha by 2. You can calculate alpha as lc divided by r minus d. This is the deviation angle. And then curve resistance. So loss of attractive force due to turning of vehicle on a horizontal curve. It is called as curve resistance, and it can be calculated by t into 1 minus cos alpha, where alpha is the turning angle and t is the traction force. So that's all about horizontal alignment of road. And then after a horizontal alignment of road, next topic it is vertical alignment of roads. So in that, before beginning with the design of this vertical alignment, you need to understand about the gradients. So gradients are divided into different categories: ruling gradient, limiting gradient, exceptional gradient, and minimum gradient. So ruling gradient, it is the maximum gradient within which designer attempts to design vertical profile of road. So this is the maximum gradient. So IRC has recommended some ruling gradient values as 1 in 30 for plain and rolling terrain, 1 in 20 on mountainous terrain, and 1 in 16.7 on steep terrain. So these are all the values as per IRC recommendations for different terrains. And then limiting gradient, where topography of a place compels adopting steeper gradient than ruling gradient. So plain ruling gradients, limiting gradients are used. And then exceptional gradient. In some extraordinary situations, it may be unavoidable to provide still steeper gradients. So at least for short stretches, and in such cases, steeper gradient up to exceptional gradient may be provided. However, exceptional gradient should be strictly limited only for short stretches, not exceeding about 100 meters at a stretch. Maximum length of ascending gradient which a loaded truck can operate without undue reduction in speed is called as critical length of grade for design. So recommended maximum values of gradient at different terrains as per IRC. So if it is a ruling gradient for plain and rolling terrain, it is 1 in 30, mountainous 1 in 20, and steep terrain 1 in 16.67 already said. But when it comes to limiting gradient, it is 1 in 20, still steeper, 1 in 16.7, still steeper than ruling, and 1 in 14.3. When it comes to exceptional gradient, so 1 in 15 for plain and rolling, 1 in 14.9 for mountainous, 1 in 13.5 for steep. So, and then last one more gradient, it is a minimum gradient. For drainage point of view, 1 in 500 need to be provided. And then grade compensation when the vehicles travel on horizontal alignment as well as vertical gradient. So when a sharp horizontal curve is to be introduced on a road which already has maximum permissible gradient, then gradient should be decreased to compensate for loss of tractive effort due to the curve. This reduction in gradient, this reduction in gradient at the horizontal curve is called as grade compensation. Grade compensation, the percentage will be 30 plus R divided by R, subjected to a maximum value of 75 divided by R. So both values can be calculated where R is the radius of curve. So according to IRC, grade compensation is not necessary for gradients which are flatter than 4%. So you need to check this condition also. If the gradient is flatter than 4%, then the grade compensation is not at all required. Then vertical curves. So vertical curves, summit curve or crest curve with convexity upwards, and there will be valley curves also. So first we'll discuss about convexity upwards, that is summit or crest curves. So simple parabola is used over here. The general equation, it is a y equal to a into x square. So a equal to n divided by 2l, where n is the deviation angle over here. So n will be given as n equal to n1 plus n2. So length of summit curve for stopping side distance. If length is greater than stopping side distance, the equation is given by L equal to ns square divided by root of 2h plus root of 2 small h whole square. Here where L is the length of summit curve, S is the stopping side distance, N is the deviation angle, and capital H is the height of eye level of driver above the roadway, that is 1.2 meter, and small h is the height of object above the pavement surface, that is 0.15 meter, and L equal to ns square divided by 4.4. If you substitute these two values, that is 1.2 meter and 0.15 meter, in place of capital H and small h respectively. So you need to remember this formula: summit curve greater than stopping side distance under crest or summit curves. And if length of summit curve is less than SSD, you can use this formula. L equal to 2s minus root of 2h plus root of 2 small h whole square divided by n. And if you substitute value of capital H and small h, that is 1.2 and 0.15 meters, you will get a simplified formula L equal to 2s minus 4.4 divided by n. And minimum radius of a horizontal summit curve r equal to capital L divided by n. And then next condition in that, length of summit curve for a safe overtaking side distance or intermediate side distance. So if length of curve is greater than overtaking side distance or intermediate side distance, the formula is L equal to ns squared divided by 9.6. You need to remember. And another case, if it is length of curve is less than OST and IST, you need to remember the formula L equal to 2s minus 9.6 divided by n. And minimum radius will be L divided by n, where n is the deviation angle. So highest point on the summit curve is a distance L into n1 divided by capital N. So ascending gradient, that gradient multiplied by length of curve divided by deviation angle from the tangent point on the first grade n1. And then another case where concavity upward comes, convexity goes downwards. Valley curves or stack curve, we call it as. So descending gradient meets ascending grade over here, gradient over here. So the best shape of a valley curve is a transition curve for gradually introducing and increasing centrifugal force acting downwards. So cubic parabola is generally preferred in vertical valley curves. So length of a valley curve, it is designed based on the following two criteria: allowable rate of change of centrifugal acceleration of a 0.6 meter per second cube and headlight side distance. So two conditions we'll check over here. So higher of the two values is adopted as length of valley curve. Usually second criteria of headlight side distance is higher and therefore grounds the design. Valley curve is made fully transitional by providing two similar transition curves of equal length. So AB and BC are two equal transition curve, each of length Ls equal to L by 2. So length of transition curve here, it is L by 2 as visibility is proper. And then length of a transition curve Ls for comfort condition, you can take this formula Ls equal to V cube divided by R into C, where R is L divided by 2n, where n is the deviation angle, C is the 0.6 already we have fixed, or rate of change of centrifugal acceleration if it is given, and V is the design speed in terms of kmph. So length of valley curve for second condition, that is headlight head distance. If length of curve is greater than SSD, we can use the formula L equal to ns square divided by 1.5 plus 0.035 times of S, that is sight distance. And here the beam angle is taken almost equal to 1 degree. And another case, if a length of curve is less than SSD, we can use formula L equal to 2s minus 1.5 plus 0.035 sin alpha divided by n. One example problem on vertical curves. So a vertical summit curve is formed at the intersection of two gradients. So first one is plus 3, that is ascending gradient, and then second one minus 5, that is descending gradient, minus 5%. Design the length of summit curve to provide a stopping side distance for a design speed of 80 km per hour. So we know how to calculate the side distance here first. We need to have value of s, right? So after calculation of value of s, we can calculate by using condition can be assumed accordingly. So which condition it satisfies, we have to finalize that value. So the value of deviation angle and then value of a side distance it is required for the calculation. So side distance formula we have, that is stopping side distance equal to 0.278 v into t plus v square divided by 254 f, and value of v it is given 80 kilometer per hour, and value of f if it is given accordingly that value should be used, and here it is taken as a 0.35 the longitudinal coefficient of friction, and time it is taken as 2.5, that is a reaction time. So we get 127.6 meters, nothing but 128 meters. So that is the value of S. And deviation angle, so ascending gradient that is 0.03, that is 3%, minus descending gradient minus of minus 5%, that is 0.05. So that we will get 0.08 as the deviation angle. So assuming the length of valley curve greater than stopping side distance, we have formula ns square divided by 4.4. So we saw over here length of summit curve, length equal to ns square divided by 4.4, where L is greater than SST. So this is the formula we used. L is greater than SST. L equal to ns square divided by 4.4. So N is 0.08 and S is 128, already we calculated, square divided by 4.4. So that we will get 297.9 meters. So this 297.9 meters, it is greater than stopping side distance 128. So this is okay. The length of this curve, it is 297.9 meter. It is okay. Another example on valley curve, an ascending gradient of 1 in 100 meets a descending gradient of 1 in 120. So a summit curve is to be designed for a descent speed of 80 km per hour, so as to have an overtaking side distance of 470. So the value of OST already it is mentioned, that is 470 meters. Design speed and summit curve details it is given. Ascending gradient 1 in 100 and descending gradient 1 in 20. So the deviation angle is 11 divided by 600 we are going to get. So first condition, if the value of length of curve is greater than overtaking side distance, we can use this formula ns square divided by 9.6. So we can remember this. You see here, if the value of OST length of curve is greater than OST, then formula is ns square divided by 9.6. If the length of curve is less than OST, so it is 2s minus 9.6. So both the cases we are checking here. So first case n square by 9.6 we will get 422 meters. So this 422 meters is less than 470 meters. But the condition we assumed, length is greater than OST, so that this condition does not satisfy. So another condition we go for, so length of curve is greater than OST. So another formula 2s minus 9.6 divided by n we use. So s value that is 470, it is given in question, and value of n that is 11 by 600. So we substitute, we'll get 416.4 meter, nothing but 417 meters. So this length of curve 417 meters is less than the mentioned OST, that is 470 meters. So the condition which was taken, that is length of curve is less greater than, actually it is less than, it must be greater than, it is less than OST, so that this 417 can be adopted. Okay, so that's all on transportation engineering, uh, that is transportation infrastructure for today's session. So few more topics are there that we'll discuss in another session. So that's all for today's session. Yeah, Akash, Chandana, Jai Surya, Jamuna, Janardhan Chari, Pranati. Yeah, fine. Thanks for attending. I'm stopping recording now.